Hello everyone, welcome to episode 5 of building a web server using Python. In this episode we're going to make some static pages. And you might think, well, aren't we taking a step back? We just made all these cool pages, now we're making some static ones. Well, yeah, we sort of are, I guess, in that respect. But how dare you say that? No. Um, so you don't have to create a view for every page you create. So we're going to make a special view that we're going to use for static pages, so we don't have to really write a view every time we want a page. We're also going to separate our navigation a little bit here, so you won't be able to see pages you can't get to, so people won't get that login page unless they click the login page, and then once you log in, it'll show you what you can get to, the remote control and music. We're also going to work on refactoring our code a little bit because it's getting kind of messy the way we have it set up. So while we're not getting a new feature out of that, it's going to help us in the future kind of make it easier to add new features without doing a lot of work. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I reset what we had last time. So if I refresh, yep, that looks like what we had last time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the file system now. So the issue here is we've got this demo.py that's getting kind of large. We can't really break templates down anymore because they're already broken up by page, which is good. And of course static is just individual files. So let's look at demo. So demo has a bunch of stuff in it. It's only 70 lines right now, but as we add more features it's going to get bigger and bigger. So what we want to do is we want to take each of these views out and put them in their own files. So remote will have a remote.py, music will have a music.py. That way it'll make it easier to navigate, because if you want to get to the music view, you'll just click on your music file or your directory structure. It'll make it much easier to get to, and it also breaks everything apart so it doesn't get so big. I'm also going to create a utility Python file, which I'll put this decorator method in. And then we can throw any amount of other things in there that we need that's not necessarily a view. That way they're all together, all our utility things. Yeah, so that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and make those changes, and you guys can just download it if you want, or you could do it yourself. You can pause the video now and just make those changes if you want, and then we'll just start up here in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so I went ahead and made those changes. Let's just take a brief look again at what I did. So I split my views out into separate files, like I said. I also renamed main to be login, because that's really what it is. And then I've got everything that operates on my application down below. The URL rules are still in here. And I moved the secret key out to a different location. That'll help you protect it a little bit more, although we still have it set as bacon, so it's not a big deal. So my other files, pretty straightforward. I've got my login and login. Here's my settings file. Here's my utilities. Music and music. Very straightforward. This is pretty normal stuff. If you've ever worked in Python, just separating classes out into files. I also changed the templates a bit. I refactored them. We have these flashed messages in just about most of the files, I think. So I put that in the base template, so everything that inherits from it will be able to display flash messages if any messages get flashed. So that's a good thing, I think. I also went ahead and created this if statement. So if you're logged in, it'll show you remote control music and log out. But if you're not, it only shows you the login page. So we essentially have the same functionality as before. It's just it'll look a little bit cleaner. It won't tempt people to click on these things trying to hack into pages that they can see. So let's just do a quick look to make sure everything's still working. So if I log in, I should be able to see those pages. Yep. And it still works. So cool. Now let's go ahead and create some static pages. As usual, I created some HTML templates beforehand, so you don't have to watch me hand code a bunch of HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and move those in. I'm going to have an index, a contact, and about page, And we'll go over the 404 page here in a minute, but you're welcome to put any amount of static pages in that you like. And so we're going to need a new view, so I'm going to copy remote because it's a pretty simple one. I'm going to call this main, and let's open that bad boy up. So let's delete everything under there. We're just going to define the get method. For now it'll be pass. And we don't need this stuff. Okay, so we've got our main view. We need to import that. And instead of showing the login as the main page, we're going to show our index. Okay, so that's good for our index. The final piece of the puzzle is we need to have actual links here for our static pages. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to make them all. So for our main index page, we can get the URL for it. For the rest of them, we kind of have to hard code those, and I'll show you why that is in a minute. By hard code, I mean I have to type about right here. It's not going to be able to get the name of the page based on basically the view name, sort of. So main comes from right here. I'm calling this view main. Alright, well, let's take a look and see what we've got so far. So if I refresh, of course, gotta go back to my main because I didn't return anything. Let's return index.html. Okay, so now I've got my index, about, and contact links, but you'll notice about was not found on the server. Oops. And contact won't be found either, but index works. So how do we get it to automatically direct us to about and contact without creating a special view for each of those? And the way, well, what we really need is we need another parameter called page. And this can tell us the page name of what we're trying to get to. So instead of saying index, we could say page. And by default, we're going to want this to be the index. So how do we do that? With a fancy URL rule. So let's copy this. We still want this root to go to our main view, but we also want to make a kind of a dynamic URL rule. So I haven't done this yet, I don't think, but you can specify a URL path like this and create variables. So I've created a variable here called page, and this will get passed to whatever view function that you specify. So here I've got a page that's going to be passed to the main view. So save that, go back to main. So now we get our page name here. It'll say index or contact, but we need to turn that into a template. So we need to append .html on the end of that. So that'll automatically figure out what our template name is and render it. So if we go back now, this should work. Excellent. So we've got our any amount of static pages you can create now, as long as you've got a link to it, it should work. But there's a problem. What if somebody comes along and they just type any old thing up here for a page that doesn't exist? Well, we see a template not found error, but when we're not in this debug mode, it's going to give them probably a error 500 internal server error. So how do we handle that condition where somebody types something in or someone has a link to something that doesn't exist anymore? For that, we've got to go back to our main, and as you can see, it's pretty naive. It just assumes the page exists, and then it renders a template with .html on the end of it. So we need to check to see if that template actually exists. So we can do os.path.isFile and we do page. Although we do need to check to see if it's in the templates folder. So we can say if it is a file, we can do that. Otherwise, flask.abort 404. So that will return a 404 error in the event that it doesn't exist. So let's test that out. So this is our 404 page. This isn't ours. This is the default one. So it'd be nice to customize this since we're getting 404 error. It'd be, people like to add funny messages and whatnot. And there's a little snippet of code you can put in to customize it. I'm not going to write this out manually. I'm just going to paste it because this is pretty boilerplate. But what this does is it specifies this is a decorator that says the following function is going to handle 404 errors. And you can name the function whatever you want, and it does take an error. That probably contains some useful error information. But all it does is it renders our 404 HTML page. Then it also needs to return the error for some reason, just to pass it along, I guess. So if we go back here and refresh, now we get a page not found error. We still have our navigation. So that's a lot nicer than the previous page, the built-in one, because then people can go ahead and still click. They won't just leave your site immediately. So I think that's about it. Let's check to make sure that everything else is working okay. Music and remote control looks good. Okay, so that's it for this episode. I think this layout, this refactoring that we did, sets you up really well to go ahead and create really cool sites. You saw how easy it was to go in and add a single view. You just import it into the app.py and create your own page. So it's really modular this way and looks really good. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and let me know what you thought. Thanks.